Hi, welcome to My Utah, My Landscape painting contest. My name is Greg Newbold. I've been a professional artist for over 20 years and I've been drawing and painting for my whole life. We're going to talk a little bit to start out with about materials. Today we're going to be using acrylic paint. These are artist grade acrylic paints that are available at pretty much every art supply store that you want to get them from. I've got brushes, and then we've got a painting surface. So, acrylic paints are water soluble. You can wash them out. I've got my little tub of water here. Wash your brushes out in water very thoroughly before they dry, or you'll ruin your brushes, and you don't want dead brushes. So, I'm gonna use a very limited palette today because I believe that if you learn how to paint and mix your colors with a very limited palette, you can get any color that you want. And I'll show you how to do that today. First off, let's talk about some surfaces that you could possibly paint on. The one that I'm going to paint on today is a canvas board. There's a piece of canvas glued onto this board, and it has a gesso coating, which is a white paint surface that allows the other paints to stick to it. That's what I'm going to paint on today, but there are also other surfaces that I've worked on before. This is called masonite. It's just a hardboard, and it also has a gesso coating, and then I've tinted it with a little bit of burnt sienna paint. I also like to paint on illustration board. It's a paper surface, and it's glued onto a piece of cardboard, and it's also very nice to paint acrylic paint on. And I use this a lot when I'm painting things like children's books. So those are a couple of the surfaces that I like to work on. The other materials that you're going to need are paper towels, so you can clean and dry your brushes, and a palette somewhere to mix your paint. I just used a piece of masonite and started mixing my paint on it, and it builds up and it dries, and it's a perfect surface for me to mix new paint on because every time it dries, the old paint doesn't rub off. But you could use a piece of illustration board like this and just paint on it, and it does the same thing. Now, some of the brushes that I like to use are, these are synthetic brushes. That means they're man-made materials, and they're very durable, and they're really nice to work with. I have some round brushes and some small brushes like this. I also have some flat brushes like this. Some filbert shaped brushes that are a little bit rounded on the end. And I have a great big square wash brush. This is for me to cover lots of area really fast with a lot of paint. The other important thing that I need to mention about acrylics is because they dry so fast, I have to use a special palette that has a piece of paper and a sponge. So this sponge holds a little bit of water. The piece of paper over the top lets the water come through the paper, and it keeps the paint from drying out. Now, this is a palette that I bought at the art supply store, and it's called a Masterson Stay Wet Handy Palette. They're not very expensive if you want to get one, but if you have Tupperware at your house, you can just get one of your mom's Tupperware containers, get a paper towel, fold it over, get it wet, put it right there, squeeze your paints out, and then when you want to keep your paints wet, you can just close it and keep the air out so it won't dry out. And then you can use your paint over and over until you're done with your painting. So that's a little bit about materials, and we'll get going on the painting here pretty quick.